Number 10. Mystique. Wolverine has been around for a long time, so it's no surprise that this is a love interest I constantly forget about, but that exists. Mystique has of course also been around for a long time, and is possibly even older than Wolverine. So of course at some point in these characters' history, they had to have worked together and of course slept together. When it comes to Wolverine and Mystique, these two actually go way back, all the way back to the Wild Wild West. It was then that Logan and Raven seemingly first met, and even teamed up together. It could have been them against the world, but of course, what usually happens with Raven when it comes to romance also happened during her time with Wolverine. Ultimately, Raven betrayed Logan, putting herself first, and it was because of this that the two ended things, and on a pretty sour note. She also ended things by kicking him out of a moving train car, so yeah. Logan's memory isn't always the greatest, but something that he wouldn't soon forget was how untrustworthy Mystique was. Even to this day, he's like, "You suck, Mystique. Also, you're gonna be lonely because you're always betraying everyone." Number 9. Maureen. She might not be from the main continuity, but Maureen had such a profound and life-changing effect on Old Man Logan that even after she and their children together were tragically murdered by the Hulk gang, Old Man Logan never once forgot about her. He even later asks a returned loved, Mariko, to look out for Maureen, who herself, after more than a lifetime of tragedy and literally going to hell and back, is finally trying to live a normal and peaceful life. Mariko, that is, not Maureen, who is dead in Old Man Logan's timeline. Old Man Logan set aside some money so that Mariko could keep an eye on younger Maureen and ideally try to protect her moving forward, as he knew that if her life continued the way it had in his timeline, it would end in tragedy. He was like, I just love her so much, I just want her to be okay. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want even more Wolverine love interests, I'm pretty sure I could do 10 more. There's a lot of them out there. Be sure to let us know that you love this list by giving it a thumbs up. Can't give it a thumbs down because that doesn't exist anymore, so just thumbs up, please. What a world we live in where we can't dislike things. Number 8. Rose O'Hara. Rose was Wolverine's first love, and for most of his life was seemingly unrequited. In the Marvel Noir universe, she is also one of his main love interests. Rose is probably the reason why Wolverine tends to have a thing for redheads, actually, although that might be a foggier part of his memory and he might not always remember that. Honestly, at this point, I'm surprised that Logan can even remember what day it is or what his phone number is without having it written down somewhere. That's just how much he's had his brain and his memory scrambled. Rose was brought in from town to be a companion to young James Howlett, aka Kid Wolverine, when he was growing up on his parents' estate. Also, just to be clear, he wasn't known as Kid Wolverine, but you know, we know him as Wolverine now, so he was a kid. You know what I'm saying. Rose was also tasked with looking after James, as he was known for being a weak and often sickly child. Rose died tragically when she ended up trying to get involved in a fight between Logan and his childhood rival, who had returned years later, Dog. It was implied then, as she lay dying, that she perhaps also did have feelings for James at some point. Wow, what a time to find that out. Unlike many of Wolverine's other love interests, Rose has not yet returned from the dead. At least, not yet, anyways. Maybe later, who knows. A lot of them do, a lot of them come back to life. Number 7. Carmelita Camacho. Carmelita Camacho and Deadpool only had a very brief romance that was really kind of like a one-night stand. Carmelita and Deadpool both ended up captured together by the White Man, who the heroes for hire, who were accompanied by Deadpool at the time, had been hired to stop. Believing that these could be her last moments, Carmelita decided to go out with love, and made love to Deadpool. However, later when Deadpool took off his mask once White Man was defeated, Carmelita ran from him in terror because, you know, this thing. It turns out, however, this brief time of passion resulted in Carmelita becoming pregnant. She gave birth to Deadpool's daughter, Eleanor Camacho. Later on, Carmelita would end up dead after being kidnapped by the villain the Butler as payback. Eleanor, however, lives on, and Deadpool does his best to be a good dad to her when he can, often fighting to keep her safe from his own enemies. But also, Eleanor might be someone super powerful in the future, so hopefully we get to see more of Eleanor. She's super cool. Number 6. Silver Fox. Silver Fox has become a complicated character character since her original story as Wolverine's lover. Silver Fox is a member of the Blackfoot tribe and is Canadian. When Wolverine met her, she had recently been widowed and as such began a relationship with Logan, who had recently been accepted into living with her tribe. Silver Fox, however, would tragically die at the hands of Sabretooth, Wolverine's arch nemesis, and a vicious man and a vicious mutant. Later on, however, this act would also end up being tied to Romulus, who apparently influenced Sabretooth and did a lot of brainwash shenanigans regarding the memories of her death, and who was believed to have been behind it. Wolverine would end up attacking the people of Mount Logan and blaming them for her death because Romulus had him brainwashed to believe that that's what happened, despite Sabretooth having taken credit for killing Silver Fox, and doing so in front of Logan. Silver Fox would also later seemingly return, but it's more likely that this version of her associated with Weapon X, Team X, and Hydra was actually some kind of clone or was an agent who was simply brainwashed and manipulated into thinking that she was the true Silver Fox. Yeah, Silver Fox became really complicated, but she used to be very simple.
Halfway through into number 5, Jessie Wells. By the way, editor, you don't need to put the dash Wally. That was just for me. In the case of the Arrowverse, Jessie Wells was Jessie Quick, a speedster from Earth 2. She was the daughter of one of the most brilliant scientists, Harrison Wells. A college student on her Earth, Jessie was abducted by Zoom in a plot to turn her father against Team Flash until being rescued and forced to temporarily relocate to Earth 1. After being hit by a dark matter wave from the Starlab's particle accelerator, Jessie gradually managed to unlock her Speed Force connection, becoming a metahuman speedster and superhero badass. After helping Team Flash defeat Grodd and his guerrilla army, she decided to move to Earth 1 permanently with Wally West, whom she was dating until they broke up. After learning Savitar had plans for her though, Jessie left Earth 1 to take over for Jay Garrick as the Flash of Earth 3, until Barry Allen was destroyed and Jay returned from the Speed Force. Jessie then returned to Earth 2 to continue her heroics and lead on her team. However, her and Wally did end up getting back together, as we see when Wally comes back and Barry realizes who Savitar is in like that same episode. Like he comes back, they ask him how was Earth 2 or how was Earth 3, one of the two. They ask him how visiting Jessie was. Then Barry realizes who Savitar was in one of the later episodes back in season 3. On December 10th, 2019, after Earth 2's destruction in a wave of antimatter, Jessie was soon confirmed to have been killed, along with the rest of Earth 2's population, aside from Laurel Lance of Earth 2. After Oliver Queen's sacrifice to recreate the multiverse though, it is unknown if she was resurrected.
Number 4. Itsu. Itsu was Wolverine's wife at one point many years ago when he was training with the Master Bando Saburo. The two fell in love, were married, and Itsu even became pregnant with Logan's child. For a brief time they were happy, until Logan accidentally stabbed a fellow member of the community with his claws. As a result, he was forced to leave, exiled, but when he went to say goodbye to Itsu, he only found her dead. Years later it would be revealed that Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier was actually the one responsible for her death, seemingly manipulated into killing her under Romulus's orders. Oh, Romulus, pulling all these strings and then just disappearing. Their unborn child was also stolen from Itsu's womb, and due to the child's mutant gene, which would also grant him a healing factor, survived. This child would grow up to be Akahiro, aka Daken, Wolverine's troublesome son, who was manipulated into thinking his father had killed his mother before abandoning him. And I'll just let you guess who made him believe that. If you can't guess, it was Romulus. Romulus did everything. And also nothing. Number 3. Shiklah. Shiklah was actually the wife of Deadpool for a time. He was hired to bring her to Dracula, who she was actually supposed to marry, but along the way, she fell in love with Deadpool. Sort of like a weird and maybe grosser version of Shrek, perhaps? Not like Deadpool's a grosser version of Shrek. Like that whole narrative sounds like a maybe grosser version of Shrek. The two would end up deciding to stay together and get married. It was fun for a while, but eventually Shiklah became resentful of the world above. She was the ruler of the monsters, and as such lived in the underworld. Deadpool's long absences from her only intensified her feelings of resentment, and eventually she launched an attack on the surface world. Deadpool ended up joining up with Dracula to stop her, and after she was defeated, Dracula proposed marriage to Shiklah, who agreed, thereby stealing her right back from Deadpool and nullifying Wade and Shiklah's marriage. Number 2. Mariko Yoshida. At this point, Mariko has had a long and somewhat convoluted story, but initially in the comics she was simply the daughter of Japanese crime lord Shinjin Harada, who ruled over Clan Yoshida. Mariko would end up meeting Wolverine when the X-Men asked her brother, the mutant Sunfire, for help. While initially kinda scared of Wolverine, eventually the two would fall for one another, both admiring the differences of the other, and also sharing a sense of kindness. Mariko would end up forcibly married off by her father and in a relationship where she was pretty badly mistreated. However, she felt compelled to stay in that marriage due to a sense of honor to her family. Eventually, however, Mariko would become free again and would even take over as the leader of Clan Yoshida in her father's place. For a time, her and Wolverine were engaged, with her not wanting to be married until she had removed all the criminal ties from her family. In the end, however, Mariko would die in a criminal gang war before she could end up marrying Logan. Mariko ended up poisoned, and Logan helped her death to be less painful at Mariko's behest by making it a lot more brief. Logan would punish her killer by visiting him every year and slicing off a piece of him until he died. This wouldn't be the end of Mariko's story though, as she would continue to pop up as the forced tormentor of Wolverine in hell, and later resurrected as Gorgon's Scarlet Samurai. Basically another lover that we just couldn't leave dead, because yeah. I also love when Wolverine comes to hell and is like, alright, I'll free you though, Mariko, and she's like, nah, I'm good. Just remember me as I was. I don't want to go back. Like what? They could have had a happy ending there. Oh well. Number 1. Storm. Storm has always been a close friend of Wolverine's and is sometimes known for being his romantic partner as well, especially more recently in the comics. Depending on the reality we're talking about, there have also been universes where these two are firmly cemented as a romantic couple. Even in modern comics, with all the history they have shared as teammates, close friends, and romantic interests, these two's chemistry still manages to surface, and even today, they get pretty awesome flirty moments written in for them, like during the Ten of Swords Otherworld tournament when the two faced off in a drinking contest against one another. The best thing about that, too, was that they both held their own and proved they could match each other. That's the thing about Storm and Wolverine. Both are incredibly strong, both as superheroes and as individuals, which is just a small part of why they work so well together. They're very, evenly matched, which I like.
And in 10, Tina Mcgee. Tina Mcgee was a scientist who worked at Star Labs and a friend of Barry Allen in the 90s television series. Basically, for those of you who watch the current series, she was this show's Caitlin Snow. She helped Barry Allen deal with his super speed powers, eventually by giving him a special suit that was modified into a superhero costume when Barry became the Flash. This version of the character is exclusive to the continuity of the television series The Flash and is an adaptation of Tina Mcgee. The original character was created by Mike Baron and Jackson Geis and first appeared in The Flash Volume 2 number 3 and was played by Amanda Pays, who plays Christina Mcgee on the current CW Flash as well, which I personally think is a great reference. In the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, however, John Wesley Shipp Jr. reprises his role as Barry Allen from that 90s series once more, as he did in the previous crossover Elseworlds, to bring this character's story to a close. When sacrificing himself on the antimatter cannon's treadmill, it's revealed that this version of Barry went on to marry this version of Tina Mcgee. And at 9, Linda Park. A tragic tale. An instant before the Flashpoint altered reality, Linda's children, Jay and Irie West, were sucked into the dark multiverse by a tide of dark matter. Wally attempted to save them, but was too late. Dr. Manhattan removed 10 years from the history of DC, which included all of Linda's relationships with Wally and Jay and Irie's birth. Linda's memories of her family were erased while Wally was trapped in the Speed Force. When Wally was able to briefly escape the Speed Force, he tried to get to Linda, his lightning rod, to remember him so that he could permanently escape, but she couldn't and thus was pulled back in. Wally was eventually able to leave the Speed Force for good though, with the help of his mentor and uncle Barry Allen. He reunited with his old friends the Titans, where he found he was able to restore their memories of him with a touch, but that Linda was mysteriously immune to this. And at 8, Emiko Queen. Emiko Emmy Queen is the current Red Arrow, a master archer and a vigilante who runs around wielding a bow. She is the Green Arrow's half-sister and partner, vigilante partner. And she is also the assassin Shadow's daughter. Emiko was born to Robert Queen and Shadow on Starfish Island. However, as a baby, she was kidnapped by her father's protege turned enemy, Simon LaCroix. Not the dude who invented the soda though. Better known as Komodo. LaCroix would train Emiko for years with the Outsiders Arrow clan, leading her to believe that he was her father. After Robin had offered for her to join the team, Emiko agreed to join on the condition that if her team does not convince her, she can leave. The team formed by Robin, Kid Flash, Jin, Roadhouse, and Crush had no training, but Emiko saw potential in them and decided to stay as Robin's right hand. hand. This is where Wally would develop a slight crush on her despite her having a crush on Nightwing. After their encounter with Deathstroke goes awry though, leading her to kill the assassin, Emiko leaves the team.
Number 7. Yukio. Yukio has been both a lover and a friend to Wolverine, as well as acted as the adopted mother of his adopted daughter, Emiko. Yukio first met Wolverine during her time working as an assassin for Clan Yoshida. Initially, she was Wolverine's enemy as she actually worked for the head of the clan, Lord Shinjin, who wanted to shame and kill Logan. Yukio would develop an attraction to Wolverine, but at the time he was basically hung up on Mariko Yoshida, the daughter of Lord Shinjin, so nothing came of it. However, it was because of her feelings for Wolverine that Yukio would ultimately decide to help save Mariko's life later on, despite the fact that Mariko was kinda like her romantic rival for Logan's affections. Yukio is also known for being close friends with Storm and a possibly implied romantic interest of Aurora's as well. At least that's how I see it. I feel like maybe not everybody sees those implications. But I don't know, I think I would ship Storm and Yukio, just like I would also ship Wolverine and Yukio. And just like I would also ship Storm and Wolverine. It's a nice little triangle. Little love triangle there.
And at 6, Mina De Wan. Mina De Wan was a Star Labs scientist who was struck during the Speed Force storm in Central City, giving her superhuman speed. As Fast Track, she worked with the Flash to train a new generation of speedsters to use their powers at Star Labs. After the Speed Force storm on Central City, De Wan was appointed the director of the new Speed Force testing center in Star Labs. When the Flash and August came to visit, she revealed that she had also been struck by lightning during the Speed Force storm and had gotten similar powers. She started working with the Flash to train a new generation of speedsters. She took on the name of Fast Track, and after talking to the Flash and training the speedster Avery Ho, they ran into Iron Heights to check on 3 speedsters the Flash and August had apprehended. When there, they found August injured on the floor, and the other speedsters slaughtered on the ground, having gotten their speed taken from them. August told them that it was all Godspeed's work. I am the god of speed.
Number 5. Lady Death. That's right, at one point Deadpool ends up falling in love with Lady Death, probably one of the women who would really be the hardest for him to end up with, considering his powerful healing factor. But also, as someone who can't die, it would make sense that the allure of Lady Death would sufficiently seduce him. The really wild thing is that Lady Death was also like super into Deadpool and wanted to be with him romantically. Unfortunately, Thanos became quite jealous of Deadpool's relationship with his ultimate crush. In order to keep the two apart, Thanos cursed Deadpool with immortality. So now not only did Deadpool have an impossibly high healing factor, which generally made him dying highly improbable, but now, with immortality, it was virtually impossible for Deadpool to perish. Eventually, Deadpool would regain his mortality and would also at one point use his connection to Death to convince her to restore the concept of mortality to the world after it had been taken away.
And at 4, Felicity Smoke. After Cyrus Gold stole a centrifuge from Queen Consolidated in order to make more Mirakuru serum for Slade Wilson, Barry extrapolated a logical but unbelievable explanation about the thief being superpowered by merely looking at the crime scene, which ended up being true. Felicity realized that he knew more about the case than they did, and he enlisted his help, telling Barry that Oliver wanted to keep this investigation in-house. During the course of their time together though, Felicity exhibited signs of being attracted to Barry, though she was still clearly uncomfortable when he mentioned his admiration of the Arrow and his theory that the Vigilante had partners, particularly one versed in computer science. You know, it was her. Barry seemed to like her back, and though he was briefly surprised to learn that Felicity spent her nights with Oliver, even though at the time it was due to them working together as vigilantes, they still kissed after she helped him on a case while he was the street. But they decided it was better not to date because they were pining after the people they'd eventually marry. Well, they didn't know that they were gonna marry them, but they were still pining after people they couldn't have at the time. So they're like, yeah, no, let's not do this.
Number 3. Jean Grey. Despite these two often not ending up together throughout stories told of them across various mediums, the fact remains that Wolverine will likely always carry a torch somewhat for Jeannie. Jean Grey and Wolverine are generally both never in the right place to end up together, and oftentimes their love story, if they do end up having one in whichever canon or narrative that we're talking about here, ends up being tainted with tragedy. The fact remains, however, that both Logan and Jean often count on one another to do what's right, and even turn to one another when they need someone to lean on in a time of need. Even when Jean is dead, Wolverine still has been known to fight for her honor, and when she has been alive, Wolverine Wolverine has also been the one to kill her more than once. Needless to say, their relationship is way more than complicated.
But ultimately, in at number 2, Patty Spivot. Patty Spivot in the Arrowverse is a former police detective of the Central City Police Department, formerly an officer and a former member of the Anti-Metahuman Task Force. She is also the daughter of a late unnamed man and the ex-girlfriend of Barry Allen. She is commonly thought to be the best fit for the Grant Gustin Flash, but after Barry and Patty got close, Patty realized that there was something Barry wasn't telling her. After the Turtle kidnapped Patty, Patty decided to leave Central City and go to college at Midway City University to become a CSI, like she always wanted. A few days before she left, Patty discovered that Barry was the Flash by connecting his cases to the fact that he always knew what had happened, like he had been there, and she told Joe about it, who told Barry to talk to her, although Barry was hesitant. Right before she left though, she visited Barry and told him that if he was the Flash, he should just tell her and then she would stay in Central City to be with him. Though Barry decided to make a sacrifice and let her go to pursue her dream. Then, because she wanted to prove that Barry was the Flash to herself, she called Barry while she was on the train to school, lying and saying that there was a man with gun. So Barry came running as the Flash, which finally proved to her that she was right. This didn't change her decision to go to college though, as Barry left the train and she stayed on, which eventually led to, in at number 1, Iris West. In the comic books, Iris West Allen is the wife of the second Flash, Barry Allen, and the aunt to the third Flash, Wally West, although in the TV show, Wally and Iris are brother and sister. She is a reporter for the Central City news outlet Picture News, and while she may be the most well-known Barry Allen or Flash love interest, how can we not include one of the most iconic love stories that spans across seemingly every single goddamn timeline? Like, even the one where Barry was literally the villain, like in Reverse Flashpoint during Armageddon Part 4. In the comics though, Iris was born in the 30th century to Eric and Fran Russell, and was sent to the 20th century as an infant, where she was raised by the West family. Although she was never told that she was adopted, she had always suspected it. And because of her curiosity about digging up her origins, she grew up digging for the truth. So she became an award-winning writer for her school newspaper. Then she went to Columbia University and had an internship at the Daily Planet. She needed a break though, so she moved to Central City, where she got a job as a reporter for the Picture News, and after many unsuccessful relationships, she met police scientist Barry Allen while reporting a suspected murder that she was investigating, and then they began to go out. She was charmed by his honesty and stability, and then one night Barry proposed to her while riding on the Ferris wheel at Central City Amusement Park. You gotta admit, Barry, not that original. I mean, like, filling your apartment with like 100 fire hazards like you did in the show, that's better than a Ferris wheel. And I mean, like, singing a custom song that the show had written for a musical episode to propose to her again after she took off the ring because she realized that part of why you proposed was to change her fate with Savitar, that was better.
Number 10, Rogue. Rogue wasn't so much a major love interest for Deadpool, but she definitely had a fun, brief fling during time apart from her usual main squeeze, Gambit. Rogue and Wade shared a juicy kiss, and because of her powers, she briefly made Wade handsome once more and took away his powers for a short time following said kiss. This actually also made Rogue's skin look like Wade's when he has his powers set. It was a brief moment in Uncanny Avengers issue 22, but their short flirtation was pretty cute, I gotta say. Initially, Wade thought he would never be good enough for Rogue and implied that she only probably liked him because she didn't know him very well. And she responded by kissing him again, this time probing his mind a little bit, but confirming that his thoughts didn't really disturb her and that she still liked him. I also just love that cute moment. He's like, I don't know, I'm pretty wild. And then she kisses him and she's like, yeah, but I'm a little shocked, but mostly I'm fine. I'm Rogue. I've seen some stuff. Number 9, Outlaw. Outlaw is Inez Temple, a mutant mercenary and sometimes bodyguard. She has interacted with Deadpool a few times in the comics. After her apartment was destroyed in a fight between the Punisher and Deadpool when Wade had come calling for her help, he felt pretty bad about it and worked hard to buy her a new one as an apology. Outlaw realized that Deadpool really cared for her and the two ended up sleeping together. They would later also be briefly married, but it wouldn't end up working out. Outlaw's super strength ended up being a bit too much for Deadpool during those moments of passion, and so their marriage was annulled shortly thereafter. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want another Deadpool love interest list, he's been with a lot of people, so I'm pretty sure I could do that. Be sure to let us know you want more Deadpool love interest by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Captain America. While their love might not be romantic in nature most of the time, Captain America is definitely a character that Wade loves to bits. I say most of the time, but definitely all of the time. I don't think they've ever been in a romantic relationship, but Deadpool definitely still loves Captain Captain America. In fact, Deadpool loved Cap so much that even when he had been replaced with a Hydra sleeper agent, Deadpool still followed him pretty much without question, which didn't work out so great for Deadpool, sadly. The real Captain America had been replaced by a Hydra sleeper agent, who was created by a sentient version of the cosmic cube named Kobuk, who altered reality by changing Cap's allegiance, believing it was the right thing to do at that time. As such, Steve Rogers would go on to conquer America and become Hydra Supreme. Or that version of Steve Rogers anyways. It was only when it was too late that Deadpool realized the error of his ways. His love of Captain America had blinded him and really led him astray that time, and left him so hurt afterwards that he ended up drowning himself in mind wipe drugs, completely wiping his mind of many of his own past adventures. Sometimes love hurts.
And at 7, Raven. Raven is the daughter and herald of the demon Trigon and a member of the Teen Titans. The woman later known as Raven was born to the demon Trigon, a demonic entity who had conquered many worlds and fathered many sons. However, this was his first and so far only daughter. Trigon murdered the women who birthed his sons, however he allowed this daughter's mother to live, believing that his daughter needed to be raised by a human in order to help her reshape the underrealms in his image. For some reason. Afraid of what Trigon had in store for their daughter, Raven's mother took her and fled to the dimension of Azarath, which was beyond Trigon's reach, where she named her child Rachel. But over time, the monks of the realm trained Rachel to control her powers and overcome her father's influence.
Number 6. Siren. Siren and Deadpool were actually for a time both romantically interested somewhat in the other. They had a brief romance, but would also at times come back together in the comics. Siren is Teresa Cassidy, the daughter of Sean Cassidy, aka Banshee. When Siren found herself depowered, Deadpool was the one who attempted to return her power to her. However, his methods were somewhat questionable. He kidnapped Wolverine and used his healing factor to help restore Siren's sonic vocal powers. It worked, but Wolverine wasn't very happy by the end of that process. And while Siren was grateful to Deadpool for his help, she also didn't agree with his method. She was like, maybe don't, capture Wolverine to do that next time. The two have remained friends in the comics and have been known to be friends with benefits at times. Number 5. Tiger. One of my favorite of Wolverine's romantic interests has to be Tiger, who is long known as one of the main crime lords of Madripoor. Before that, she was Jessie Wells, who ended up being kidnapped by the Reavers and later saved by the X-Men. When Jessie learned that Madripoor crime lord Roche was behind the Reavers' attack, which had pretty much completely uprooted and dramatically altered her life moving forward, she dedicated her life to usurping and defeating him, taking up the mantle Tiger, or taking up the name Tiger really, and that's how we know her now. Wolverine would later learn of Tiger's true identity as Jessie Wells and would pledge himself to her cause, eventually working as her personal bodyguard while in his patch persona. During this time, Wolverine would also become a somewhat casual lover to Tiger as the two continued to grow closer together. And I love them together, I just think they're so cute. Number 4. Copycat. Well, you might think you know Vanessa from the Deadpool movies. In the comics, Vanessa Carlisle is quite a bit different than her cinematic counterpart. She is the mutant mercenary known as Copycat. In the comics, her mutant power allows her to perfectly replicate the appearance, personality, and even DNA of any other humanoid being. Like in the movies, for a brief time she and Wade were in love and happy together. And like in the movies, Wade left Vanessa when he learned he had cancer. The two, however, would tragically be reunited while on opposite sides of a conflict. Vanessa would become a mercenary and was tasked with infiltrating and killing the X-Force while impersonating Domino. When she couldn't bring herself to follow through with the hit though, Deadpool was sent to make sure that she did. She decided to side with the X-Force and fought against Deadpool. In the end, the two would end up back together, but ultimately Deadpool would be hired to kill Copycat later on. When he couldn't bring himself to follow through with that, other agents were sent in to make sure Copycat died. Sabretooth delivered the killing blow, and she died, tragically, in Deadpool's arms. Or so it would seem. She'd later show up alive and well without explanation in the comics, still seemingly possessing her mutant powers somehow. Who knows what happened? I don't know if we know that yet, but she's alive again, and I'm sure one day we'll find out what happened.
And at 3, Jessica Cruz. Jessica Cruz inherited the ring of the Crime Syndicate's Power Ring, becoming the new Power Ring briefly before becoming another Green Lantern of Earth. After getting taken over by a Yellow Lantern ring, she was able to fight off the influence, allying herself with the Justice League. The Flash called in Hal Jordan, Earth's first Green Lantern, to teach Jessica how to stay in control of her Yellow Lantern ring. But with Hal's help, Jessica mastered the use of the former ring. When Grail summoned the Black Racer, the new god of death, to kill the Flash, Jessica maintained maintained enough control of her body to jump in the path of the Black Racer and seemingly kill herself to save the Flash. The Black Racer though managed to kill the entity in her ring, controlling her, causing her power ring to crumble apart on her finger. For her ability to overcome fear, Jessica was actually tracked down and bestowed a Green Lantern ring, becoming Earth's newest Green Lantern, and recently is one of the more popular love interests of the Flash, with the exception of number 1.
Number 2, Vanessa Carlisle. Vanessa is a partner of Deadpool in the cinematic Deadpool universe, which might also end up being the MCU eventually. Or it might be the MCU now, I'm not sure. After all, we did see Deadpool and Korg do a reaction video together for free, guys, so Deadpool is at least part of the MC YouTube verse now. Vanessa Carlisle, like Wade, also seemed to grow up having a hard life. The two actually bond over their tragic childhoods and traumatic life experiences, often trying to one-up each other in regards to who had it worse growing up. A competition really no one wins in the end. Wade at first paid Vanessa for her time, but instead of paying to sleep with her, the service she typically charged for, he used the time he'd bought to take her out on a date instead. The two ended up falling in love and eventually would become engaged as their relationship continued to blossom. Even after Wade was diagnosed with cancer and left her to try and heal in secret, but ended up instead being experimented on and ultimately becoming the anti-hero Deadpool, Vanessa still wanted to be with him, which is pretty understanding. Though of course she was mad that he had left her. In Deadpool 2, Vanessa is killed at the beginning of the movie, but ends up being saved at the end by Deadpool, who fixes and uses Cable's time travel device so that he can go back and save her. Yay! So she only kind of got fridged, but not full fridged, so yay! Number 1, Elsa Bloodstone. Probably one of his more recent romantic interests has been Elsa Bloodstone in the comics. She teamed up with him in a recent series where he became the King of Staten Island and the King of Monsters. Despite Wade doubting his own capability to be a good king, Elsa believes in him. This probably is a big reason why Deadpool found himself developing feelings for Elsa Bloodstone. He sacrificed himself to save her when it was revealed that her bloodstone had become corrupted and was basically killing her. Deadpool took her bloodstone in order to free Elsa and save her life. Through taking it, Wade also helped to reverse the corruption so that when Elsa came back to look for him following a battle with the Bone Beast Queen, she was able to take back the bloodstone once more without having to fear for her own life. As such, Elsa finished off the Queen, retrieving Deadpool and confessing her own feelings for him, giving him a big kiss. When he seemingly awoke, revealing that he wasn't dead yet, she then decided to stay with Deadpool while he regenerated the rest of his body, as at that time all that was left of him was a disembodied head. A very gross disembodied head. And I love that Elsa was like, I don't care. You're gross, but it's fine. I know monsters. I'm cool.